Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're going to carry on with our next session, which is looking at the necessity of innovative digitization. Digitalization. And we've got a great panel. So we're hoping that we're going to have the Minister of Economy and Digitalisation and Entrepreneurship and Tourism of the Government of Romania, and that is Bogdan Gruia Ivan, who is on his way to the government meeting, I understand, but will join us at some point. He may not be able to join us immediately now, but as soon as we get him online, somebody will let me know, and I will let you know. And we've got in the room with us Marius Posa, former State Secretary at the Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalisation. He's Romania's representative at the NATO Innovation Fund and an expert in NATO's CCPG group, so welcome. We also have Joakim Reiter, Chief External and Corporate Affairs Officer for Vodafone Group. Welcome, both of you, and please join me on the stage. Welcome. Have a seat. So if somebody just lets me know once we have the minister online. I know it's a bit tricky for him. I don't know if he's driving into this meeting, but I hope he's going to join us. But maybe we can start. Just to check, his minister's not online yet, no? No. Okay. Just wave when he is. But I think we should get started in any case. So I think the format for most of the panels will be that our speakers will just take the opportunity to say a few words and then we'll have a conversation. So maybe you'd like to kick off, Marius?
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I'm here for the second time at your event. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, as you say, my ex-minister, Minister of Research, Innovation and Digitalisation have vanished, and right now it's Minister of Economy, Digitalisation, Economy and Entrepreneurship and Tourism. Right now, I think what we need is not digitalization, and as we said, it's digital transition. I think because the main topics is disruptive technologies. We must to see and understand we don't need something what is coming like, I don't know, like snowfall and cover us. We must take it easy. I will use step by step because digital transition, it's first of all to understand what kind of tools we have and how we must to use it. Because if we'll take, I don't know, artificial intelligence and you'll use it in any, let's take it, I don't know, in the school. All the kids right now, they are starting using artificial intelligence to create, I don't know, resumes, to be help at the homeworks and something like this. Okay, we must to teach them. They need some kind of tools, but these tools don't need to replace their mind, to replace their thoughts, and how to use it. So I think if we take this from the school and we put it in the economy, in the industry, in our day-by-day life, is the same things. We must know how to use it to help us, not to replace us, not to stop the thing, not to stop to create, I don't know, add value in economy and all of this. Because in a certain moment, what is actually artificial intelligence? It's a huge library of metadata, put it together, and some algorithms who will find the best solution for us. Okay, let's use it to have more solution, not to take the first one and to apply it in our life. I think this is the transition for digital life. It's not something we have some tools, we use it, and that's all. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good point, and we'll come back to that in the discussion. Over to you, Joakim, if you want to say a few words, and then we can.
Sure, I think I build on Ivana, who made a really good number of really good points. I think the three questions Romania and Europe needs to ask itself. Number one is, how bad is bad? Number two, why does it matter? And number three, what do we do about it? If you start with how bad is bad, frankly, if I look at all metrics on digital transformation and digital infrastructure, which is of course part of the business that I'm involved in, there's not a single metric except affordability measured by purchasing power where we're ahead of China. Every single metric available, we're now behind China. I don't know a single point in time where we as Europeans were able to catch up with emerging economies on core technologies. But we have found ourselves now in a situation which Mario Draghi presented really well, that on something that is transformational for our economy, for the future of society, we now need to play catch up. And it's true, Ivana made a reference of where Romania sits in Europe, but frankly, it's not a problem to be a catch-up economy in a pioneer region. It's a problem to be a catch-up economy in a lagging region. And Europe is lagging behind. So how bad is bad? The truth of the matter is really bad. Second question is, does it matter? So on the question of why it matters is that I think what people have finally understood is that digitization is like a tidal wave. It raises all boats or it sinks all boats. Meaning it is now the platform upon which you drive the productivity in the economy as a whole. And if you look at the productivity numbers of Europe and the United States, and remember the gap is just increasing between us and the US, the real point of departure with the US versus Europe was in mid-1990s. And the number one driver for that was something called total factor productivity, which is underpinned by the ICT revolution. So Europe's continuous underinvestment and inability to leverage ICT revolution is the predominant explanation why European citizens are today poorer than American citizens. It's the reason why most of our EU member states would be ranked as the 51st member of the United States Federation. So most of our member states today are poorer than Missouri. Our citizens are poorer than Missouri citizens. And that is because of total factor productivity, and that's directly linked to ICT. So it matters a lot to be a laggard. Then comes the third question, is what do we need to do about it? And particularly in the environment that we find ourselves today, we really don't have more time in Europe to talk about it. If you want to play catch up, it's all about decisiveness and speed. And digitization being extremely disruptive, you don't have the time for a lot of conferences or impact assessments and debates. We already have the recipe, if you want, for what we need to do, which was offered to us by Enrico Letta and Mario Draghi. My concern is whether we will action it fast enough in Europe. But if I had to summarize it in three pillars, number one, investment, investment, investment. You simply will never catch up unless you unlock private investment. And Europe is miserably bad at unlocking private investment. And that has to do with investment climate in Europe. And that to some extent, you get the amount of capital you get into an economy is dependent around whether or not it's attractive to invest in that economy. So investment. Second is, Europe is not good at cleaning out legacy regulation. And particularly legacy regulation that drives fragmentation. Technology is a scale game. So you need to have in-market scale, you need to have single market scale, and Europe still is a market in technology with 27 unique markets, which means that we get subscale in Europe. We're not leveraging the benefits of the single market that you see in every other industrial sector in the area of technology. And the third thing is security. Security is frankly an investment and scale game. Vodafone can run very, very advanced cyber defense because we basically have combined all of our assets, which is 15 markets around the globe, in one cyber center with 900 employees 24/7 protecting Europe as well as Africa. It's a scale game. So if Europe wants to understand telecom as it is today as mission critical, it needs to align all of its policy instruments behind inviting investment, simplifying regulation, and putting a premium on security, none of which is happening today.
Okay, that's very clear and quite a lot to pick up on, but did you agree with that assessment of Europe vis-a-vis US and obviously China too, that we're laggards and actually, Europe is not doing right now what it should be doing fast enough?
I think it's not about fast enough. It's about how we do it. Okay, I'm agree. There are some gaps between, US, Europe, right now that China is coming from behind. We don't know if from behind or if it's in front. We don't know yet. But I think, first of all, we must to have a secure digital world in Europe. Okay. Part of okay, we are not a unique single. We don't have a European single market. But what they're trying to do is to have European single market, and okay, right now we have this discussion. We started, 2 months by now. It's from now. It's this. I think it's a misunderstanding. This competition between Europe and US. I think it's a partnership. Right now, it's, I don't know, will be reevaluated and repositioned. But we have the situation from Ukraine. We have the situation from European markets. So I'm not so concerned about this dysfunctional, like everybody say, between and this huge gap. Everybody say between US and Europe. I think it's more like. We need to understand what is happening and how to start to create and to increase our economic power in the digitalization field. Is not something what we can do. It's something what we can. We must to have a joint venture with everybody who is on the same table with us. It's not a competition, because if we start a competition, we can lose or we can win. But we are not interested to lose or to win. Is to make a situation very clear and to help our people to be on the market and to be, like my partner says, to be not poor, to be on the same level.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
Why don't I agree? Because when Trump won in the first Trump administration, and I was in the White House meeting his staff the day before. He was in the Rose Garden announcing the 5G race against China. Why did Trump do that? He did that because he realized that if the United States was behind China in 5G, it meant that it was behind in the adoption of the industrial internet. The industrial internet drives productivity of every single manufacturing service sector in your entire economy. So Trump was right to declare this as almost like the next moon landing type of race with China. To just give you a hard fact, today, multiple years after Trump declared this race to not fall behind on 5G standalone, which is the term of technology where the 5G network becomes a programmable platform for industrial applications and the industrial internet. China is today at 80% of its citizens have access to 5G standalone. India is 52%. US 24%. Guess Europe? 2%.
Oh my Lord. Oh.
So that means China is 40 times more available with 5G standalone for its SMEs, for its manufacturing cars, for its chemical industry, for its machinery industry. Where do you think those jobs and those innovations will then happen in the future? Where do you think the future of cars will be created? Here or in China? So the question we have to ask ourselves as Europeans, and this is where I disagree on the race, is that we lost out in Europe on the 4G revolution because we were 4 years behind the United States on 4G. It's not a race with the US in the sense that actually it's great that they have 4G. It was great that we deployed 4G. But those 4 years meant that all social media platforms that you're aware of, with the exception of Spotify, frankly, as a music platform, were all created in the United States. Now imagine that's the consumer internet platform. If 5G standalone is the industrial internet platform, where do you think manufacturing will happen? Where do you think the innovation will happen? So being late in technology means that you experiment less. You will be able to adopt other people's innovations, but you will not do the innovations in Europe. And for me as a European, that's of grave, grave, grave concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to respond, Marius, to that?
I'll keep my statement.
Okay. Just to say, unfortunately, the minister is with the Prime Minister now, so he's not going to be able to join us, but I think we can carry on this conversation, and I guess let's stick with this. I think it is a very important point that you're making, this gap, because the expectation, I remember how long this discussion has been going on, the expectation was that Europe would catch up. At one point that was the expectation, would start to catch up, close the gap with the US. But instead, as you emphasized, that gap has grown wider. And I think you stated very clearly why that is. At the end of the day, it comes down to, lack of investment, total factor productivity. But I guess behind that, if it's just about investment, okay, there's something more kind of underlying problem here that explains why Europe is such a laggard in terms of growth and in terms of technology adoption and so on. And that has to do more, I think, with this kind of, cultural factors of, the difference in terms of the entrepreneurial culture, risk-taking, attitudes towards regulation. So it's, changing all that is, the big challenge. And I guess that's what Draghi, was saying needs to happen. But it's not easy, is it, to change, a kind of whole culture on which are embedded all the institutions, to change that very quickly. But obviously, you can have bonfires of regulations. And I think, a reset of Europe's regulatory framework is really probably one of the most essential things. Would you agree with that?
So do we have a cultural challenge in Europe? I happen to be European, and I think that's too simplistic. It's almost become deterministic that we have to fall behind it the minute something is innovative, which I don't think is true. If you look at, for example, in my sector, we have two European champions, Nokia and Ericsson, that has been driving the innovation within the telecom industry. We have us, Telefonica, Orange, and Deutsche. We're driving the innovation in network architecture. Actually, we're at the cutting edge on that. Vodafone is the #1 innovator on IoT in the world outside China, right? So #1. Vodafone has an incredible innovation arm. As I mentioned, we are operating in Europe, Africa, and to some extent in India. I say to some extent it's a challenging environment, but the difference is that we productize and industrialize our innovations better in Africa than we do in Europe. So Vodafone has a higher ability to drive and commercialize its innovations in Africa than we have in Europe. So we are a test case of, is there a European cultural problem? No, it's not actually. The question is, where do we scale? So to give you an example, and by the way, that's not only us, it's true. I mean, if I look at the engineers of Telefonica or Deutsche, all of them still have this cutting edge world-class engineers. If I look at the engineers of Ericsson, it's the same thing. The question is, why are we not industrializing and commercializing in Europe? So if you then look at the investment level in Europe as a percentage of total revenue, European companies actually invest more than US companies. So we have a higher capital intensity in terms of what we invest, including in Romania. We invest more as a percentage of our revenue than Verizon and AT&T. The difference is that the scale of that market means that the aggregate investment in absolute terms in the US is double that of Europe. So it's a question of fragmentation. That's a self-imposed handicap. And I don't think that's cultural. I think that's actually about ruthlessly chasing down things that obstruct us and being laser focused on turning the screws on the stuff that clearly is just aimed or inadvertently has the effect of tripping up companies. And I think that's where what I really liked about Draghi is that he actually pinpointed what those things are. I give you a concrete example. In the UK has had a competition policy that is very similar to the European Commission, DG Comp, actually slightly different from, say, Romania, which is more permissive, but DG Comp has had a very strict interpretation of competition rules. The CMA in the UK has now adopted a competition logic, which is more akin to what we've seen in Brazil or in the United States. The impact is Vodafone can now invest 11 billion in building Europe's leading 5G network. It's not more complicated than that. That's one change that unlocks 11 billion. So it's about being laser focused on what are the things that drive the business case for industry, and we can stipulate exactly what that is. Just to give you one other example, because we tend to talk about culture, but it's not about culture. 250 billion is the investment gap in Europe to catch up with respect to digital infrastructure. So 250 billion euros. In the last 20 years, European governments have extracted 200 billion from the industry in spectrum auctions. That's a choice. We would actually not have a huge investment gap if we hadn't had a policy of extraction. Whereas the US and China operates very, very different policies on spectrum. So it's a choice. And I think that's where we as Europeans need to understand is you can't take prosperity for granted. You need to make choices. And the more you unleash the power of the private sector and the innovation power that we have in Europe already today and allow us to commercialize it and scale it here rather than doing it in Africa, US, or in China, the better it is.
Okay, great. Thank you. Marius, just wanted to come back, talk a little bit again about Romania, maybe, to address some of the points that Ivana was making. I don't know if you heard were you here for the first session, the conversation with Ivana Sikora, and some of the areas of strengths, but also she identified some of the areas of weaknesses for Romania. So first of all, e-government, that Romania is lagging behind there. That's somewhere where, it's possible to actually change things quite rapidly. Actually, Greece is probably a great example, which nobody expected probably, but what the minister Pierakakis did there, he was Minister of Digital Governance when the New Democracy government came in 2019. And in the space of a few years, just transformed the situation. I think it was voted by the Greek people the second best policy ever undertaken in Greece. So it's possible to do it, to make that leap, And so I just wanted to ask you about that, where Romania stands with that. And she also mentioned the low digital adoption by SMEs as well. And, the fact that Romania is not really fully utilizing the potential funds that are available to it under the RRF. So could you tell us a little bit about Romania, what's happening, what you expect to happen? Obviously, we've had quite a lot of political instability here in recent years. Is that the problem, or why is it not happening?
I think, first of all, let's split the political instability, because, we have government, it's stable, we have presidential election, it's a different story. It's not about something what is not working, because the government it's fully empowered. If we talk about e-governments, it's very simple. We agree, we are a little bit behind of the other competitors, but we create laws, we have rules right now who are working. Everybody will say, again about the cloud. Yes, we started to create the governmental cloud, which is right now is the biggest cloud in Europe. At this moment, we want to think will be fully operable at the middle of 26. So actually, we start to create a lot of platforms who are helping SMEs and everybody, and these e-governments. We have partnership with Vodafone, with other companies. We are start to create a new, let's say, a new playground for everybody, where everybody is happy, and the people from the startups and the old companies and the companies who already are running in the economy, they understand they need digitalization. They started to try to increase their power in digitalization we succeed to teach them to use technological transfer, because if we make only innovation, only research, but without technological transfer in economy to create something, to give back in the economy, it's for nothing. We spend a lot of money in research, but if we don't have a final product who will bring us some add value, it's for nothing. We just spend money to spend money. So actually, Minister Ivan and other ministers start to create and to explain to the people, it's time to take some risk, to go on the market, and to try to understand the rules in their position in the best way to treat that rules. Okay, I'm agree. We have a lot of regulation in Europe, but we try it, and most of them we succeed to simplify it and to create a very good environment for the companies to can afford to invest in the digitalization. They started to take help from the European funds, for the governmental funds, for the, I don't know, any help we can provide them. And what we have done, and the Minister Ivan have done in the past, was to explain to the people it's time to invest in real things, not just to buy some machinery, some computers, just to spend money. No, we explain to the economical field they must to buy something what can bring value to their company, and I think in the most of part we succeed to do this.
Thank you. Joakim, maybe just to give your perspective on Romania, and I guess maybe a broader perspective. What is Romania doing right? What maybe it needs to do more, and which countries are getting it right in Europe?
In Europe.
Yeah.
So I have the mixed pleasure of covering the globe.
Yeah.
So I can compare countries, individual instruments, policies, and I can see exactly the consequences. And just to be very clear, at local level or at national level, you have pockets of genius coming also in Europe. So to give you a concrete example, you mentioned Greece. When I met the minister there and we went through it, I think he digitized 56 million touch points for citizens in 18 months. Like that would be really difficult for Vodafone to do. And we're a tech company. So it's a remarkable achievement he did. If you talk about Lisbon has basically turned its entire city into a test bed for regulatory sandboxing. So you're allowed to launch a 5G standalone application and test it. For example, real-time transport monitoring, real-time transport steering. So Lisbon is a great example. Sevilla has built an entire command center built on sensor technology for waste management, electricity grid management, traffic management. And the mayor of Sevilla then has a dashboard where he can in real time see how the whole city is living and breathing and optimize resource allocation within the city. So you have these examples that are happening all over Europe. The question is, how do we take the best examples and scale them? If I look at Romania, what do I think, and Ivana actually raised that. For Vodafone, Romania is both an important national market, but also we see it as a potential hub for our European ambitions as Vodafone. And why do we say that? Well, first, we have a very good relationship with the government. I think the government is actually doing a lot of right things. It's harm-strung by being in a laggard region, but at least it has the ambition of catch-up, and that's a very, very good starting point. And of course, we're working on consolidation in the market to gain scale. We're working on avoiding the drastic reduction in competition in mobile by spillover from fixed situation in Romania. So there's a number of regulatory instruments that the government is working through, which I think is excellent. But also Romania has, which is very important for us, it has a really, really, really top-notch talent pool. And so this is why we want to put increasingly our European hub activities out of Romania, particularly in the area of managed service, which is an IT integration skill, as well as cyber. Partly because of the talent, partly because of your geographical location. People are more on the toes here from a cyber perspective than you see in some other parts of Europe. And we, of course, as a British company, have very, very close relationship with security agencies in the UK that are world-class. And we see a similar world-class mentality here from a cyber and security perspective. And that means that we have a very natural collaboration with the Romanian government on that. So I think there are some strengths that makes it attractive for us, both from a national player, but also from the point of view of a pan-European player to utilize Romania as a springboard for our ambitions in Europe. So I think there's a lot of things that we can improve. My overall message, however, is a little bit to do like the Greek minister did, or like the mayor of Lisbon. Test, experiment and learn fast. This is in technology, if you want to have all the dots filled in or the whole template filled in before you have a leap of faith, you're going to be too slow and you're not going to capture the full benefits. So work with companies to experiment, work with companies to drive that innovation. Most companies, ours and our competitors, are willing to experiment with government. I think what we've done with the government on cloud is excellent, for example. So there's a huge untapped potential. And frankly, all the companies that I know that are operating in Europe are very patriotic. So they're very, very willing to invest more, and they're very willing to try new products and new approaches. And by the way, we did that during COVID. That's when all of us parked our BAU. We parked our status quo. We dared to experiment together. And that's one of the success of our response in COVID, was that both from a private sector point of view and a public sector point of view, we actually dismantled some of our historical roles and co-created the solution. And I think we need to do that broader on digital transformation, because the current division of labor is not working.
Okay, well, thank you both very much. That's all we've got time for, but it's been a very enlightening session. So thank you very much indeed.